Hello, August. How are you? It's Past Podcast. We'll be recording every day for the month of August. Having to remember not to say April is an adjustment since I just did this a couple of months ago. But this is the Past, or the Past Podcast. And we're podcasting each day in August. So check out the show. You might find something new. What is happening? Episode 112, not the musical group. What's going on? The Past back at it again. Co-host back with me as usual, Dimitri on the mic.
Yeah, back at it again.
We are back, and I will admit that I usually was so to start off. Let me go ahead and get Brandon out of the way. Podcast uploaded each day, each week using the Spreaker app, Spreaker.com. If you want to look at doing podcasts and starting out, it is a good option. I have a wild card story I may throw out there because a lot of people I have seen use SoundCloud. May talk about that as a random story that I found because it was some stories that was circulating that SoundCloud might be shutting down, but that's not the case. So I'll get into that later on towards the end. It'll be the random spinoff of the Ass of the Week. We have a lot of topics. It was and I'm sorry, the microphone used for the recordings is the Blue Yeti microphone. Definitely don't want to forget that. I did have a bit of it's going to be kind of a somber point at the end. It's kind of going to be a somber point, and then I got a surprise. I haven't told my co-host about it yet, so we'll talk about that when we get to it. It's going to be done live on the show, so we'll get into that later. But we, as much as I have to make my parting departure from the NBA, they always find ways to pull me back. And the first story we have is the infamous unveiling, as they like to call it, of the NBA schedule. And they usually break this down on looking at it as who's going to play who, what matchups are we going to look forward to. As I think this year's theme from my personal perspective, and help me on this, is ball versus the NBA. Cause
all his matches are gonna be like marquee matchups, you could say, because he pretty much has a rivalry with everybody thanks to his father, you could say. Yeah.
One of the matchups that actually was coincident. Well, before I get into the Lonzo Ball versus the NBA run, a lot of teams who did trade players or have players go to new teams, some of those players won't be meeting their previous team until next year. They won't be playing them this year when the season starts early on based on scheduling. But Jimmy Butler, he won't be seeing the Bulls until late. Chicago. Let's see. Chicago have a little bit of a wait. The Bulls reunion is going to be in Chicago on February 9th with Butler, Taj Gibson, and oddly enough, Coach Tom Thibodeau facing against his former team, the Bulls. And then with the Jazz fans, Gordon Hayward, they play against Boston on March 28th, so it's going to be a super late game. And Chris Paul, he goes back to play against Houston. Chris Paul goes back to play against the Clippers on January 15th, and I believe that would be on MLK Day. I need to double check that. I'm probably, like I said, so as y'all know, I'm the voice. You know, my source is always, anytime you hear keyboard going, he put in the information. One of the first matchups that they bring up, of course, as we all know, is the five game run. You got the info?
Yeah, so that is Martin Luther King Day.
Okay,
yeah, that is MLK
that'll be
Day.
That'll be a good matchup.
Another matchup that's going to be coming up too. That's going to be sooner actually. Is DeMarcus Cousins? We were talking about it going back to Sacramento, October 26th.
Do you feel like he's going to have a breakout game against them?
I feel like he's going to try to have a breakout game against them. Either he's going to have one, or it's just going to be a show where he's taking a lot of shots and missing.
Yeah, this is true.
But I could see him,
kind of doing his thing.
Yeah, doing his thing.
Got it.
D'Angelo Russell goes back to LA.
Early.
Pretty early. A week later, November 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a matchup. Well, he's probably going to try to go off as well too.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens between him and Ball, since they'll probably be guarding each other.
Going against each other. And then, of course, like I said, as the Ball versus the NBA reference continues, Joel Embiid has his chance against them, and they'll be playing in LA on the 15th of November. Of course, that's all based on the outspoken words between father and player, to say the least.
Yeah, they had a little back and forth that they did. Joel Embiid actually ended up getting fined for one of his
tweets.
Yeah, one of his tweets. Lonzo Ball then goes and they play against De'Aaron Fox. His rivalry goes back to
the fact that they got 11 games on ESPN tells you a lot too. Just random. I'm sorry, but yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Continue.
They play a lot of games on TV. They did it last year as well too.
Yeah.
Which they were worse last year. So, and then Thunder visit the Lakers on January 3rd. You know, Paul George had his little talking about
sleeping. He wanted to sleep with enemy, go back home because he was from that area because he went to Fresno State. So yeah, that would have made sense if he did get that LA shot.
And then the matchup that everyone's waiting for, Golden State and Cleveland. We'll see if Kyrie's still on the team when they play Christmas Day.
You was kind of going where I was about to take that and wondering, like, will we see... First off, it's still the question, I know we talked about it before, is Kyrie going to be a Cav when the season starts? But then is he even going to be a Cav by the time this game goes on? I guess that's still, we'll be talking about that for a while.
Because players who were traded or picked up, free agents that were picked up during the offseason cannot be traded until December 15th, if I'm correct. So that would be the time that they maybe do a trade, say, with Minnesota.
Right.
Trade Jeff Teague and Andrew Wiggins or something of that nature.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah, true. They have Thunder going against the Cavs in an ABC game. That's a big deal because that'll be when ABC kind of gets that. They kind of hand the reins over because normally it's ESPN, TNT for most of the season, and then after the MLK matchups, ABC comes in and picks up a few games. So that'll be their first TV airing. And LeBron gets to make his trip to LA.
His home, really?
his home. There's a lot of of course, with a lot of hype coming in with him opting out of his contract. That'll be a big matchup, and there are other games that I feel will be huge. But like I said, those are the marquee matchups that they have listed in the article that we did find for the scheduling. Another note that I wanted to mention, because we were talking about this and I found this to be a big deal. They're doing away with the four of 5 nights of playing games, because normally you would see a team play 4 games out of 5 nights, and they wanted to kind of cut that down due to there actually won't be any due to reduce injuries and teams having to rest healthy players for things of that nature. Back-to-back games have also been reduced, so they'll have that lowered. It was initially 14.4% per team. That's how many it'll be this year. It was about 16.3 last year.
Yeah, no team has more than 16 back-to-backs this season.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you mentioned it, but that has never happened in history where they cut out all 4 games in five nights.
Yeah.
It's supposed to help with rest, so teams don't have to rest their players, and so on marquee matchups, I guess players aren't rested.
Right.
They're trying to help with that.
Yeah, that's the main focus and the main goal.
Do you think teams will still rest players?
Yes. When it comes to once you get down, like I mentioned this earlier in this before we started. Teams, when it comes to like when you look at it, I don't want to say basketball is like soaps, because you kind of look at it like after All-Star break is when teams kind of pick up. Mm-hmm. So by that, I would say that 50, 60 game stretch is when you can kind of play the rest like sit or start play. Fun fact, you probably remember this, when the Spurs were playing, Greg Popovich was the professional of petty, where he would take Tim Duncan and have him sit out, and they would be like, injured reason on why he wasn't playing, and he literally put old. He put the term old for him for one game, and I will never, to this day, forget him for doing that. But he also, Popovich teams, I'm using the Spurs as a heavy example, but it's a confirmation of it to a T. They're a team that's built on, okay, we know we got guys that are not young, so if you can give me at least 60 to 65 games, and if we can win 45 of those games, solidify a good position by that point. Because on the West, you have to come out with at least 50 to have a high spot.
Oh, to try to get home court advantage.
Yes.
in the first round, I would say at least 50.
Yeah,
and Pop is definitely synonymous for sitting his players.
Yeah,
he even did it one time, like when they went to Miami back when LeBron was there.
Yep.
And he sent Tony Parker, I believe it was Manu, and Tim Duncan home like Southwest.
Yeah,
and
just to have him sitting.
Yeah, just to have him sitting.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up getting fined for that. He was one of the first ones to get fined for it.
He took a chance on that one big time. So next story with the NBA. We did talk about a couple of teams unveiling their logos, and I was sitting here with this lost, confused look of figuring out what was the shoe or the wing, as it's been called, the wing foot. I learned on the Nike, on the Cleveland Cavaliers jerseys, they have the Nike swoosh, which of course the NBA is going Nike this upcoming season, so a lot of jerseys have been reformatted to the Nike feel, and oddly enough, the wing foot symbolizes for Goodyear, which I totally would never have thought of. Giving this a brief attention because, like I said, we did logos and breaking down the league and stuff. But on the link that's provided in the show notes, you'll actually get to see. You can see like pretty much the full uniform, how it's designed, where they're bringing it back to the land. I believe one part of the uniform has a reference. I'm find it very briefly because, like I said, I don't want to give. This isn't something I'm really gonna throw a lot of attention to. I think it says like all for one in one of the. I'm sorry, I was backwards. One for all within the jersey portion of it, or in the shorts.
Defend the land along with the stripe with this. I mean, the spirit of the resilience in the Cleveland Cavaliers. They have that on the trimmed outlines, I believe.
Yeah. And then they got on the bottom of it, all for one, one for all. But obviously, unless you're wearing the jersey personally as a fan, like if you're watching the game, it's the last thing you're going to see that's broken down. So that's that story. So before we talk about the next two previously class of 2018 members who are now 2017 members who are going to their respective schools, this is kind of going to be our education 101. I found a story. I'm not going to really read it A to Z, but to kind of give you an idea, one part of it that's relevant is what's called reclassifying. And as a student, I mean, I guess in high school I would have never thought of it because I didn't see a reason to do it at the time. Mm. But I actually do know classmates who did this where they decided, it's my senior year of high school, but instead of me staying, they decide they want to go into their collegiate year. So basically reclassifying is you decide to change the date you graduate from high school and or enter college after you have started 9th grade. Changing either is important, and this is more relevant to athletes, and that's why this kind of ties into it. If an athlete graduates from high school early but they do not change the date he or she goes to college, there are rules that might impact his or her eligibility. The same goes for athletes who graduate on time from high school but delay their college enrollment. So, like I said, the article's there. I just kind of threw that as just kind of as a breakdown and explanation. But the former 2018 number one recruit, Marvin Bagley, he was supposed to be top recruit of 2018 class, decided to he reclassified himself to join class 2017. They did an ESPN unveiling, which ESPN always takes it to level 50 when they can. And he had his little bag and did all his little rundown of thank you, I appreciate the support and all this and da-da-da-da-da. And he said, I'm deciding to take my talents. Like first he said, I'm reclassifying and I'm going to be coming out of high school this year, going to college. And he decided that he's going to be a Duke Blue Devil, which kind of gives Duke a huge odd.
It gives them the number one class.
Yes.
First of all.
Yeah.
And then their odds, like say in Vegas, their odds went up. Mm-hmm. They were, I believe, 7-1 odds to win the national title. Now they're 3-1 odds to win the national title.
Still got Grayson Allen, I'm sorry.
And he actually moved to the number one player in the class of 2017 above Michael Porter Jr.
Which says a lot.
It definitely does. He's projected to probably be the number one pick in the next draft as well, too.
So this is an interesting topic, and I want to, you know what? I'm going to do better. I'm not going to talk about the Porter story yet, about the Michael Porter story, because I want to save it for the next story outside of this one. But Bagley, like I said, as I mentioned, has declared. He was a 5-star prospect. He was playing at Sierra Canyon. Had a pretty good season last year. He was kind of came off of an injury the season before, if I recall. So we really didn't hear much about him. But he's going to join a pretty strong class for Duke.
So actually, the year before he had to sit out a year because of transfer rules. He transferred to a school. He wasn't allowed to play that year, and then he ended up transferring again to Sierra Canyon.
Okay. Thank you. You know, like I said, y'all know I'm guilty. I make mistakes sometimes. I forget. My bad. No, but Dimitri, appreciate the info. Always. And let's see. They've kind of given him they're giving him. I don't want to say they've done any comparisons yet, because the obvious comparison that I keep seeing with Michael Porter that we talked about, that you just mentioned previously, is they've compared Porter to Durant, which if you look at him play, it's kind of a similar circumstance. But with Durant and Michael Porter.
Oh, okay, I thought you said with Bagley.
With Bagley, I don't really know who to compare him to yet, because he kind of has he's a finesse player. He's a lefty. He's very good around the basket. You don't see him take a lot of jumpers. Like he takes jumpers when needed, but he's more of a just kind of a slash the basket kind of guy that I've seen.
He definitely is. His shot, he has good form.
Yes.
He doesn't shoot it very well from beyond the arc. He's still working on it, but it's a fluent shot, so you can see that he could get better at it. His mid-range shot is pretty nice. He's good in the post and down low, like you said, and on the fast break. He definitely runs the floor and has a high motor.
Yeah.
And he also crashes the boards a lot too.
Prepare for that high motor reference in the NBA draft next year, y'all. You heard it. Remember Dimitri said it, so we bring it back up.
And he's good defensively as well too, with blocking shots and everything as well too. So
he's good on defensive, and I will give him that. I've seen some defensive plays, because from my personal perspective, and help me out on understanding, because I know we always watch a lot of highlights for, like, now we're in the YouTube era of guys kind of getting like these good highlight reels. Majority of his highlight reels are offensive based, but you do catch a few defensive plays in there, which is good, because not many players have like a defensive presence on YouTube.
That is true. Yes. So yeah, no, he definitely has a lot of his defensive highlights do get in there as well too. And also this summer he played a lot of Drew League as well too.
Yeah, they speaking of which, I feel like now him and Harden were on the same team, so you can't really say anything about that matchup because they didn't play against each other. But him and DeRozan, seeing the two of them go against each other, and it was an interesting matchup, because here it is, DeRozan's like a seasoned NBA player, not a veteran, but he's played in the NBA for a while, and you got Marvin Bagley, who at that time was touted as 2018 top classmate, or top class, and he was going to be a senior next year. Now he's going to college. It says a lot about him, how he played as a player. I mean, obviously DeRozan's team won, but that's because you had DeRozan, Nick Young.
Actually, no, it was Bagley's team actually won that matchup.
Okay.
And they also had a matchup when they played against he played against JaVale McGee as well too.
Yeah.
He held his own pretty well in that one as well too.
Yeah.
So it definitely be interesting. I see him and Porter both being like franchise changers.
Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how it all pans out for him. So the next story we have is another reclassification. Since Michael Porter Jr. went ahead and went to Missouri, because he was initially going to go to Washington, but because his dad is on the coaching team with Missouri, John Tay decided also to reclassify. He was already looking to go to Missouri anyway, but he officially is now going to Missouri this upcoming. He'll be playing this upcoming season with Missouri to join his brother. Another lefty. From what I've seen with him, he's a unique player because, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know from videos that I would see him play, what helps him is what hurts him, and that's spacing. Like, if he has a good spacing for the floor, he's fine. But because him and his brother were playing, the team they were on, it was kind of like, I won't say he was in the background of Michael Porter Jr., but he more so did a lot of the dirty work that we didn't hear about, because you would hear PJ Fuller, their point guard, doing something here and there, or you would see Michael Porter doing it, dominating against somebody, or kind of just scoring at will.
No, I definitely understand where you're coming from with that when they played on the same team together. He still did well too.
Yeah.
Not to say that he did bad, because he's still a 5-star in his own right.
Right.
But I think he'll do good at the next level as well too. We'll see. I don't think he's a one and done. like his brother is.
Okay.
And plus, I don't know if he'd be eligible to actually be in the next draft since he's turning 18 in November.
Yeah, because you got to meet the NBA requirements.
Exactly.
So this ties into the mic. This is now the one and done reference you make is funny because, and of course, as we always say, and as I always mention in podcast disclosures or disclaimers, TMZ is a source to be taken lightly, but not to be taken as serious about certain things. And the reason I say that is because Porter Jr. was on. They caught him. I guess they did a recording with him, and he made the comment of, it's possible I may not be a one and done. Like I may stay to get, do a couple years or try to actually get a degree. That could have been just all talk, because most times when they come to you with a microphone, they come to you with a microphone, they ask a question, but then of course because it's TV, you can edit it to make it seem like something else is being said.
I did see that video, and it's possible, and it's also possible that he's just saying that, as you said. So we'll see next year how he's feeling. Maybe he just wants to stay with his brother as well too.
Yeah. Do you feel like between the Porter brothers in general, even if Michael goes number one, do you feel they can break the losing record curse? And if you may or may not know what that means, I'll explain it, because I'm not sure if it's happened. I know the last 2 years has been valid. I can't think of who was the first pick, before Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons and Markelle Fultz both were on losing teams, and even though with them being on losing teams, they were still considered a number one pick, or they ended up being a number one pick coming from a school that had like a bad record. Do you feel like if Porter's a number one pick, will Missouri have a losing record?
I believe it was Andrew Wiggins the year before that, so he didn't have a losing record. So it's just been the last two.
Yeah.
I think Bagley's gonna be number one.
Okay.
However, I don't think Mizzou's gonna have a losing record though. Missouri, okay. I don't think they're gonna have a losing record.
Okay.
So even if he goes number one, I don't think that streak will continue.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
What about you? Do you think it will continue?
I think. So all right. This is an interesting scenario, and I say that all the time, but I really stick behind that word. Like it's really an interesting thing to look at, because you have to look at it like this. Bagley can get to Duke and be the man. Bagley can get to Duke and probably be a hidden gem, because you may not hear about him. Because you look at their lineup, you got Bagley and you have Trayvon Duvall, which a lot of people are forgetting about.
And Wendell Carter.
And
Gary Trent Jr., who are all number one players at their position.
Right. So with all those guys going there, if the ball is distributed well enough and he makes the mark as far as for NBA scouts, I can see Bagley going one. In the regards of Missouri, I'm looking forward to it, because I'm not sure. I need to check the schedule. If Kentucky plays against them twice, I would love to see that matchup, as far as if Missouri actually can beat them. Because then that would tell a lot about Porter and actually not being on a losing base team. Because I know when Simmons played a couple of years ago,
they beat him one of the two times.
Yeah, it was you could tell Ben Simmons was I remember watching one of the games, and Ben Simmons was the go-to guy. They was giving him the ball. Obviously, he was bringing the ball down. It was he was put in the forced position of having to dominate the game as it was. And since you mentioned it, now that we talked about this off air, the article that it's kind of a 2-for-1. This article that we have about Jontay Porter actually talks about another article that we're going to get into. So it'll kind of be addressed backwards, but then we'll bring it back and kind of add more information to it. One of the biggest things that's talked about, and this is kind of going away from college basketball, this will go into the NFL. Last week, a couple weeks ago, oh wow, okay, I love getting articles and stories that just pop up randomly. It's a matter of fact, I'll tell you all now. So they brought up a still shot comes up talking about LeBron, Cleveland making custom shirts to ask LeBron to stay home, wanting him to stay in Cleveland. So that, of course, that's what we'll believe when we see it. But a couple weeks ago, we did have the NFL Hall of Fame game, which consisted of talking about those who were going to be going into the Hall of Fame. They had everyone go up and do their speeches. We'll mention who did make it, But a couple of guys one person who did not make it, that was a big story, is our good old buddy Terrell Owens, who is ranked second in the game between, with behind Jerry Rice, as far as yards. And they're talking, they made the reference of looking at other players who are Hall of Fame eligible, this kind of leads to a good question, because it's going to be next year. Do you think Moss makes the first ballot Hall of Fame?
I was thinking that same thing when I saw that he's eligible next year. I don't know. T.O.'s numbers are up there. The top 3 wide receivers in NFL history are T.O., Moss, and Jerry Rice.
Yeah.
Nope, not that order.
Not in order, yeah.
It's those 3, and you would think that T.O. would have made it into the Hall of Fame first ballot. However, this was his second time being on the ballot, and he wasn't in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Randy Moss will be in the Hall of Fame. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And so does T.O. It shouldn't matter about their personalities or how they were as a person. They both were very productive. Mm-hmm. So I feel like they both should have made it. They both should make it in the first ballot. T.O. we'll see when he does make it in. He's going to eventually make it in.
Yeah, and I guess I need to, because I know some kind of breakdown rules to it regarding, like, I think it's a specific amount of times you can go into the hall.
Yeah, I believe there is a certain amount of times that you can be.
Yeah, so the actual enshrinement, now they gave, so the order, or the listing order of those who gave speeches at the hall, and I know, like I said, we're about 2 weeks behind on this story, but I wanted to make sure I didn't leave this off because it is a big deal. The Hall of Fame and the enshrinement individuals were Kenny Easley, Jason Taylor, Morton Anderson, TD or Terrell Davis, LT, the reinvented LT, LaDainian Tomlinson, Jerry Jones, and Kurt Warner, which I think they did pretty good on the class they had that you had this year. Like you said, Morton Anderson, he was a kicker. He was a place kicker for quite a few teams. He had a pretty good, solid run. Terrell Davis, 2 times Super Bowl champion. Kenny Easley from the Seahawks, I guess he's been trying to, make an attempt. So if he played back in '87 and made it to the Hall this year, that tells you probably have, like, I guess it's a matter of when you try to, or if it may be after a certain point they say, all right, we'll go ahead and give you a nod. Jones, the house that Jerry built, Cowboys, big things.
The biggest question mark out of the group would have been Terrell Davis.
Right.
Just because of how long he played in the NFL. That was the question, because he only played 7 years due to injuries. He did great things while he was in. He did, I believe, win one MVP while he was playing. Mm-hmm. He rushed for 7,600 yards. Yeah, he did win one NFL MVP in 1998.
Right.
However, he just ranks 55th in career rushing yards, when T.O., as we were saying before, ranked second in history.
Right.
In yards receiving. So.
Yeah, I feel like Davis, it's kind of like you didn't talk about the Broncos at that time without talking about Elway or talking about Davis. So I think that's why it was kind of like his nod was there, because you kind of saw, and a lot of people don't, if you go back and look at that time of playing, when Denver was in that stage of winning, Denver was kind of like silently rebranding a little bit. Like, they changed their uniforms, their style of play. They kind of made it like a ground and pound type of team. Elway's the guy. Obviously, Elway was the guy. He always threw passes, but you would more so kind of see them go to Terrell Davis a lot.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm just saying, in production-wise, T.O. also deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And plus, another person who didn't make it was Isaac Bruce.
Isaac Bruce was a huge surprise, shocker from looking at his stats.
He's 4th all time in receiving yards behind the 3 I named earlier, and he was the complete opposite of T.O.
Yeah,
where he was silent, he was humble, didn't speak much, and then everyone knows T.O.
Right. T.O. was the animated over the top guy, yeah.
And so he kind of got looked over, Isaac Bruce, while T.O. kind of got ignored.
Right.
I don't know. I just don't think it's right for them to bring personalities into the Hall of Fame inducting.
I don't, and it's not even like, I'm not saying it just because I truly can relate to that. Ironically, they showed, so the full list of those who did not make the Hall this year that made attempts of going, which the first one still I wouldn't even have thought of. Tagliabue, former commissioner. T.O., which we mentioned. John Lynch, who used to be with the Bucks. Tony Baselli, he's more so known. You kind of see him as a Fox personality now, but that's unexpected. But I guess you can't. Everybody can't make it, so that's kind of. Well, I'm not gonna say everybody can't make it, but it's not. But so many they can have for that particular year that kind of get that huge attention. Brian Dawkins, Alan Faneca, Joe Jacoby, center Kevin Mawai, and wide receiver Isaac Bruce, as you mentioned earlier, and cornerback Ty Law. Last year's class was also a big one because it included QB Brett Favre, and it was thought that it might be one of the best ever because it potentially included Owens. But not only did he fail to make it, he didn't make it this year. So hopefully, like I said, I feel like he'll have a chance of coming in and getting his mark on that, and we'll just kind of see what kind of turns about from that process. Let's see. It was just something I was going to mention. I can't remember if it was related to that or not. But anyway, sticking to the NFL, we both have our players who do their customized cleats. I know Julio Jones wore a pair for 9/11, which was they were pretty sick. Cam is always wearing like animated Under Armour cleats with Superman reference.
Antonio Brown does it as well too.
Yeah, Antonio Brown. You said Brown, right? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, I want to make sure. I was like, wait, let me make sure I didn't say the wrong name. But Darren Ravel broke the story from ESPN stating that players will be allowed to wear more personalized cleats, and this is only for pregame and warm-up. So it won't be you can wear them on field during game, but it'll be more so for the expression. So this is, I'm indifferent about shit. Like, I'm sharing this story, but it's like a unique story because I'm gonna kind of say something that I talked about this before, and I've been indifferent about it. And I think I've mentioned it to you because we talked about it, and I've talked to other people about this. With the NFL going through everything that they've gone through with the NFL, with a lot of people boycotting, I've had somebody send me a video about boycott NFL, saying that people are going to wear black shirts and not wear any NFL paraphernalia. And I broke that rule today, and I'll explain later why I mean that. But it's like basically a way of saying we're not supporting the league, we're not going to watch the sport. And for me, it's a tough spot because, like, and y'all know I'm always going to be honest whenever I do podcasts. Taking away football from my podcast, or from our podcast, I'm sorry, I'm being selfish, my bad. From our podcast is not a good thing for the listener, because you do have people who actually like to listen to the sport. So I understand everything going on with Kaepernick. I have my views about it. I feel like it's not right, but on the same token, I know I have to do a show. So I just mentioned that in referencing into this, and the reason I'm stating that is, do you think anyone is going to cross that line and possibly make any customized cleats related to Cap for pregame?
So with the cleats and what they're doing with it, there are still a couple of rules about it. The cleats can't have any unapproved footwear brands like logos on them, or anything trademarked or commercialized. The cleats also can't have anything that would be deemed offensive or express political views. Okay. So that may express political views. However, that may not stop people from wearing them and getting fined. Take that fine chance. So people may still do that. Right. I think people still may do that. Okay.
I tell you this, and we always talk about it all the time. Anytime we ask questions or talk about things, there's literally not a right or wrong. It's just like a general, it's like open discussion, because we talk about stuff, and we'll get into it because I didn't put it as a tab, but I'm going to go ahead and mention it after the next story, so that way it's within the sports queue, because we did talk about that. And Chad Johnson expressed his opinions about this with the league, is saying that at the time it was defined as the no fun league, and now somebody put up, and I swear when I say the internet is undefeated, the internet is undefeated. Somebody put no fun league is becoming, we're not as uptight as we used to be league, and I mean that's kind of a valid way of looking at it. And then of course there was a lot of like you said, cleat customization will not include political messaging. With many believing that Colin Kaepernick remains out of a job due to political stance and Marshawn Lynch sitting during national anthem, the relationship between NFL and players who desire to express themselves politically continue to remain the forefront conversation, which is going to be a constant trend for the next couple of years until it's addressed or anybody acts or acknowledges as if it exists. So kind of segueing from the NFL, we'll get into a little bit of the NCAA. We're a few weeks away from college football starting, and looks as though Antonio Callaway, who's the top player, I don't know if y'all heard that, I'm sorry, along with was among 7 players from University of Florida who were suspended against Michigan. Dimitri was able to pull some information, and I'm going to pass this over to him, and I'm kind of going to prepare for it.
So it was Antonio Callaway, as you said, he's their top receiver. Mm-hmm. The other players included Kayvon Davis, Kadeem Telfort, Jordan Smith, Richard Desir Jones, mm-hmm. Ventrell Miller, and James Houston are all also suspended.
Yep.
They're suspended for their first game. Mm-hmm. I believe it's against Michigan. And so what they ended up doing is it was a misuse of school issued funds.
Okay.
What they did is they went to the school bookstore with their student IDs and they bought items and they sold the items for cash.
Okay.
So I guess that's their way of, they can't just get cash off their student IDs. That's the way of getting cash for them. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they got suspended for that, and it's possible they may get suspended further. But right now, it's just they will miss the Michigan game. They've also missed practice as well too.
Yeah.
Davis was their top receiver last year, having 54 catches and 721 yards.
Yeah.
While adding 4 touchdowns. So
it's a big hit. I mean, it's a big hit. It's a big story. I mean, NCAA can never catch every sanction or every infraction. That's why a lot of them they play catch up, or they have to kind of handle it as best as possible. You know, like going back years past with the OJ Mayo story, Derrick Rose, Reggie Bush, yeah, like all of those stories, just kind of having to let it, like they have to make sure they have the information before they kind of present the story. Because I always look at it, and I'm glad it hasn't happened. Once one of the marquee schools like a North Carolina, Duke, like, I mean, I'm not saying Florida isn't a marquee school. I'm saying it as like your top high, like Alabama, and to put it in a college football perspective, Alabama. If Alabama was part of something this major, either it's not going to be known, or they have a way of being able to not make it where it's going to impact the sport itself or the game itself. If that makes sense.
I see where you're going with that. It seems like this was done by Florida itself, so it doesn't look like this was the NCAA putting down the punishment. It looks like it was Florida trying to get ahead of it,
right?
So the NCAA didn't have to punish everybody, so
to sanction, because then they could take away scholarships, things of that nature, and have it go to a level extreme. So yeah, and I initially thought I was done with sports, and then I realized that I forgot because we mentioned it earlier. And I'll get Dimitri time to prep to get his top players list, because we had a conversation at work about, which is number one. All right, so go ahead and do disclaimers early, like I always like to do. This is not going to be accurate to a T as far as the top 16 players, or this. This is going to kind of be a 2-part series. We'll present it, and then if we go through the bracket today, I will probably like just present everybody and then kind of look at the bracket and break it down, and then we'll throw what our next one is. So I'll go ahead and show my hand on this now. This week we're doing the top 16 NBA players that we thought personally. Yes. Initially we were going to do it kind of like we sat and I was like, all right, these are 16 players, and then I was like, wait, I got another 20 other players that I think will be good, and then I'm like, all right, condense it to 16. Fine, I'm forced to do 16. So I picked my 16. Dimitri picked his 16. Our 16 are not going to be the same. He saw my 16. I have no idea who his 16 are. I believe one of them is going to be our fun conversation. We'll get into that in a moment. But we're doing top 16 NBA players this week. And next week, I'm telling you all now in advance, next week's going to be entertaining because we're doing top quarterbacks. Pray on my soul that I can get 16 quarterbacks that are decent. Because we just... It's a weird story when it comes to thinking about quarterbacks in the NFL, especially active quarterbacks, because you can't put Cutler in the mix. I know Dimitri has him on this top 16.
We may have to cut down. We have to cut down the quarterback list just because there's not that many good.
So we can do. We can
do 12 or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say we can do 12 because luckily, so that is one thing. So I'm sorry. Let me brand for. I always like to do random branding. Shout out to Challonge, CHALLONGE. Great app, great program. I use it to generate different brackets. I had a bracket that I did a while back. I forgot all about it. So I don't know if I showed it to you or not. What I did a couple of years ago, and this is kind of a random story, but it's story time. We were a sports group that the sports group that I manage. We were coming together and we were looking at each team in the NBA. We took every NBA team and just gave each team like its own attention. So it was like the all-time Lakers team, all-time Bucks team. Like you took the best players for each team and put them on a lineup. And we said, all right, we're not going to put them in order. If trying to put them in order from 1 to 32 was impossible. So we did as best as we could. And obviously you weren't going to get a perfect 32 teams. So what we did was we invited the 2015 Warriors as one team. We made an all-time Warriors team as another team. Like the all-time Warriors had its own team. The Bulls were in the mix, the 72-10 Bulls. So that way, because I think this is what you got 30 teams in the NBA. So the other two teams was the 2015 Warriors and the 72-10 Bulls. And when we did the bracket, the matchup ended up being where the championship game was between the Lakers, the all-time Lakers, and the original Bulls team. Because the original Bulls team, I believe, had the original Bulls, like the all-time Bulls team had Jordan. And I think they looked at it as the 72-10 Bulls. I don't know however it broke down. We had our group kind of like match up and pick, who they thought would be for each one, and everybody gave their input, and that was who we had as that. Okay. So that's where I realized using this program was a big story. But anyway, minutia random 2%. My bad. I have a point guard one that I did, but I never actually posted it. So we're gonna go ahead and try to name our top 16 players, and they may be in order as best as possible.
Do you want to go ahead and start off with the top 16, or you want to do like a portion, and then we'll do?
So I'm gonna name my top 4,
okay,
and then I'm gonna let you name your top 4, and then we're gonna just break it down from there.
All right.
So number 1, I have LeBron. Number 2, I have Durant. Number 3, I have Steph, and number 4, I have Russ.
Okay. Number 1 and number 2, it's like number 1 and number 1A kind of.
Yep.
1A, 1B. Mm-hmm. I have LeBron at number 1.
Okay.
I have Durant at number 2.
Mm-hmm.
I have Kawhi at number 3.
His wild card.
That's Kawhi.
No, I know. We're going, and I'm explaining it, and because we talked about this all week. So
there was a heated discussion earlier this week. Stephen Curry I have Stephen Curry at number 4.
Okay. Now your Kawhi stance is based on him being a two-way player, right?
Well,
that's part of it. Let me go
ahead and defend my Kawhi pick. Okay.
This is open discussion. This is like I said earlier. There's no right or wrong because this is opinion based. So
yeah, correct. You're right. I just want to defend my opinion of Kawhi.
Okay.
So 2-time defending NBA Defensive Player of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
And he's improved his stats offensively as well too.
Yes.
Every time he steps on the court, he does defend the best player on the other team.
Yeah, he does.
He has gotten better every year. Like his averages points wise have gotten better every year. Right? So he has gotten better, and he does play both sides of the ball as well too.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very efficient as well too.
Okay.
He's shown that he can do it in the big times as well by winning his Finals MVP.
Yeah.
And not shutting down LeBron, but guarding LeBron and making it difficult on him.
Yeah,
and everybody could tell that LeBron didn't like being guarded by him during that series. So
he was very pesky. I think he would have been. He's like a new school Bruce Bowen to me, but Bruce Bowen couldn't score. And I'm sorry, let me rephrase it. Not that he couldn't score. Bruce Bowen wasn't as all around of an asset to a team as Kawhi is.
There we go. Yeah.
Like when Kawhi got injured, you felt it. Like that injury, like everybody was going for Zaza Pachulia's head when he got hurt. And I mean, it's paid off now.
And also, just another good reason is he has the same birthday as me as well, too.
Oh, my gosh. No.
He's been
No. Go ahead. No, you good.
I just found that out right now, actually.
Mm-hmm.
He's in 3-time All-NBA defensive team, first team.
Okay.
He's 2-time All-NBA first team and a 2-time All-NBA, 2-time All-Star.
Okay.
So I just think that he...
Yeah, his All-Star nods were worth it.
And also, if you look back to these last playoffs, right, and you saw how the Warriors ran through everybody in the playoffs, right, and you just saw the first 2.5 quarters with Kawhi on the Spurs playing against Golden State. First, he was shutting down Kevin Durant. He was barely scoring at that point.
And to shut down Kevin Durant is not easy, especially at his height. Yeah, right, exactly.
So yeah, he's able to guard the best players in the world, and he was scoring that time. He was scoring at that time too.
Right.
And I don't know. I just feel like he does deserve to be up there, just because he's shown that he can do it over a couple years, especially on the defensive end as well too. Because he's the best defender in the NBA right now. So if you're the best at something, of course you have to be near the top.
Yeah.
If it's one half of the game.
Right. And it's kind of ironic because I think I showed you my list and I was looking at like I need to change some people and I was like, no, I think I have them good because it's like the funny part is number 5 I have Kawhi.
Let me give like a reference for you. Because you know how Kevin Durant's probably the most unstoppable player on the offensive end.
Yeah.
I feel like Kawhi's defense is equal to Durant's offense.
I'll give you that.
And I'd say vice versa.
Right.
Like Durant's defense is good.
Yeah.
And Kawhi's offense is good as well too.
Yeah.
So I feel like those match up as well too.
Yeah. I don't see any. I have nothing against any of that you said in regards to that. So we're gonna do 5. I'm gonna let you do 5 through 8 first, and then I'll do my 5 through 8.
So at 5 I have James Harden.
Okay.
6 I have Russell Westbrook. 7 I have Anthony Davis.
Okay.
And 8 I have Kyrie Irving.
Okay. And I think I dropped. I don't know how Anthony Davis fell so low, but I think it was because I still like he's from Kentucky, so it's like it makes it tough. 5 for me was Kawhi, as I mentioned earlier. 6, and it's like I said, it's you can't. I mean, it's all like I said, it's opinion based. 6 for me was Kyrie. 7 is Harden, and then I have 8 wild card for me with John Wall, because John Wall is starting to come into his own now with Washington.
I do have John Wall in my top 10.
Okay.
So I don't have him pretty far off.
Yeah.
So our players are near the same range, just maybe a little switched up as well too.
Yeah.
I have Anthony Davis up there near the top. He's the only player who hasn't been out of the first round that's in my top 10. However, he's been top 10 in the league in rebounding every year since he's got in the NBA.
Right.
And he's also been in the top 5 in blocks every year since he's been in the NBA. I'm sorry, except for his first season.
Right. So with Davis, and I feel like, and I always talk about this when it comes to the NBA, and like this is where I'm always like, all right, help me make sure I'm getting this right. One stat that we never use as, I won't say sports analysts, but sports critics or viewers of the sport is player efficiency. It's between player efficiency and plus minus. Because you look at it as you take this player and you take them off the floor and see how they play without this player and then bring them back in the game. How does it change? How does the tempo, how does the game change? Every one of these players, even with everyone you mentioned, like prime example, it's tough to not acknowledge Kawhi's presence with the Spurs right now, strictly because when he got hurt,
they had no chance.
That literally, like, everyone pretty much wrote them off as a team, and then it was tough because the Spurs had nobody that was a go-to player. Because I think Ginobili, you got to look at it, Ginobili's a bench player now. Parker was hurt.
Ginobili's older now than he was
when he was in his true heyday. And Simmons, who they paid all that money to, that's in Orlando, Simmons was like the only thing that they had going, and it was like he had a hot streak as far as scoring, but it wasn't consistent. And I know I'm being bad because Pau Gasol was there, but he was a no-show.
LaMarcus Aldridge was a no-show. He's the one who's getting that max contract.
Aldridge is always a unique situation because
he show up in the big times.
Yeah,
the lights are on.
At one point, I think I was looking, because when I looked at my list, I was like, I was gonna add him, and then I was like, no, I can't. If I do that, that's just.
This was like 3 years ago. You definitely would have been on the list.
Yeah, like him as a Blazer, I could see it. And that kind of ties in because I do have Lillard as one of my top 16.
And did you say Kyrie was in your list in the?
I had Kyrie as number 6 actually.
Number 6, and it's funny how he's trying to leave the. I'm sorry to bring this back.
No, it's reality.
It's funny how he's trying to leave the Cavaliers because he's not feeling like he gets a lot of like hype for what he's doing. I understand that to some degree. However, I feel like most basketball fans respect like what he's done.
Yeah.
Especially what he did in the finals.
Right.
He did it for a couple of games in the finals this past year. However, the year before in the finals, he lit Golden State up.
Right.
There was no way they were winning that finals without Kyrie.
True.
It's just that he's not going to get an MVP or anything like that with LeBron and his team. However, he's still going to get that respect.
He's going to get his credit because I mean he could make All-Star runs. Him making an All-Star team, not as a starter, is not hard. Even as a guard, which is a challenging task on that, with that team. So
and he was the only player. Just another stat, a random fun stat to throw out there about Kyrie. He's one of 4 players in NBA history to have averaged 25 points. And shoot 40, 50, 90 from the field.
And that 40, 50, 90 is...
That's him, Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry,
yeah,
and Larry Bird are the only other 4 to do that. So
yeah, because I know Ray had a 40, 50, 90 run, I think. But not scoring-wise, you wouldn't see those numbers.
Yeah.
Unless, I mean, you'd almost have to go to his Milwaukee days. But Milwaukee, he wasn't 40, 50, 90. He was a scorer. So all right. We sidebar heavy, and I forgot this is such a huge list. Like I said, we're gonna name our players, and then we'll do the bracket rundown later. Sorry, I don't know what that was.
So 9 through 12 now.
9 through 12. I have. Thanks for coming, bringing me back. I'll leave. Paul George, number 9. Number 10, I have Anthony Davis. 11 is Damian Lillard, and 12 is DeMarcus Cousins.
Okay. I believe I only have one person who you said in your 9 through 12 in my 9 through 12. However, whoever else you said is still in my list. I have 9, Chris Paul.
Okay.
I have 10, John Wall.
Okay.
I have 11, Karl-Anthony Towns.
Yeah.
And 12, Draymond Green.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about this. Because I had to reevaluate mine because I remember when I mentioned Draymond Green as one of my tops. I think it's who you look at and how you look at a player when they fill the floor. Draymond Green is literally like a similar version in the Kawhi reference on one side. He's not a 2. Because I think that like the term I use frequently and I always kind of throw it out there is what I call a 2-way player. So Draymond Green is not a 2-way player. Draymond Green is more defensive than offensive, but he's also a pesterer.
I would like to respectfully disagree
because you got some stats. Here we go. See, this is where I always end up losing these battles. But go ahead. I'm just drop some knowledge. That way I learn.
Points wise, I would say yes. However, he affects the offensive end in a different way.
Yeah.
Top 10 in assists.
Okay.
This year, I believe he was top 10 in assists last year as well too. So he's been top 10. He was top 10 in assists last year as well too.
Yeah.
So he is also a good passer. He's vital to their pick and roll game as well as he does offensive rebound as well too.
Yeah.
So he is definitely important to their offensive side as well too. He's just not as good. He's just really great on the defensive end. That's why he did win Defensive Player of the Year.
Right.
So I just think I put him up there just because he's so great on that team defensively as well as he's good on the offense as well too. Right. It's not like he's out there and he's like Andre Roberson or something.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you gave a $13 tip. So
I know. Yeah, if you missed that podcast, go back and find that one. That was always a fun story.
And plus, he's a leader on the team as well too.
Yeah,
and he definitely brings the team together. So he's definitely impactful.
Yeah, his advantage, and I think this is what we forget about with him. We forget this involving his status. He's one of the few NBA players who, God forbid, stayed in college for more years than a few. Like Steph was at Davidson, I believe, for 3 years.
3 years, yes.
I believe Draymond did all 4.
Yes, I believe he did.
So by Draymond being, he already had 4 years of collegiate basketball coming into the NBA. Mm-hmm. So when he got to the NBA wasn't really as much of an issue for him. It was more so just learning the game. And for him, obviously he's learning the game. Like a lot of people, the whole quote unquote dirty player. I think he just plays the game. I won't say if you're not caught, you're doing it wrong. It's just he knows how to play the game the right way and also still make his impact on the floor.
Yeah, and I'm definitely one of the people on the side that last year, if he wouldn't get suspended for Game 5, they win that series in 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
So he's that important to a championship team. So I'm saying that's why I have him in my top 16 just as a player.
Yeah.
Some may say like, so if you take him off that team, would he be as good? I don't see him leaving that team, so I don't see that scenario ever happening.
Yeah, that's a tough. Putting him on his own team, and that's something that a lot of people don't understand. A lot of players are as good as they are with their team. Segueing back to football, and my friends who did their podcast, they said this, and I literally couldn't even disagree with them. Josh Norman was great because of the team he was on. Josh Norman was a good cornerback with, and like I said, I know football, basketball, jumping back, but when Josh Norman was with Carolina, he was a key part of that defense. When he left and he got to Washington, you pretty much it was a no-show because you really didn't hear much about what he was doing impact-wise, because it was more so in Carolina, it's the defense. Whereas at Washington, he's on his own island hoping that he don't get caught, but he was getting caught out there every time, especially with Dez.
So I want to throw one back your way.
Okay.
So since you came at my boy Draymond's defense, I'm going to come at DeMarcus Cousins. I mean, you came at his offense. I'm going to come at DeMarcus Cousins' defense.
Yeah, because
he's an offensive player, yes. However,
defense, he's the Olay.
Some would say.
To say the least. I truly put Cousins because Cousins has improved. In your discussion about Kawhi improving each year, Cousins has improved each year. And the circumstance for him was literally he was playing on a Kings team that just stunk. And I didn't realize it, and this is random, this has nothing to do with DeMarcus, but with Minnesota, like for instance with Minnesota, I learned a fact a couple of days ago that I didn't know about, whereas Kevin Garnett kind of screwed the Timberwolves over for a couple of years. Because with them getting Joe Smith, a rule was put in place, and it impacted the Timberwolves from losing draft picks. The reason I'm bringing that story up with DeMarcus was with the Kings. DeMarcus stayed loyal to the Kings. They would say, hey, we're going to draft these guys, and they're going to be key factors to us getting to the next level. Ben McLemore, Sky Labrasier, who else? A lot of guys.
Like Nick Stauskas.
Yeah, Stauskas, like guys who were coming in. It's like these guys, and it wasn't a team. And just like you mentioned earlier, you take Draymond Green off of Golden State and you put him in Orlando, you won't get the same results. And I know that's.
Production wise,
you're gonna get your dirt and your grit out of him, but
yeah.
As far as like trying to have someone that he really can look at as, all right, I'm gonna rely on you on being a useful teammate or a workhorse in what you're gonna do in your role. I don't see that at least in Orlando right now. Now I
could see him getting more, you could say, points.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not being, you could say, as efficient. Well, they wouldn't. I don't know. I think he's just a player that brings people like together.
Yeah,
it can make people work harder just because of how hard he works. He like brings more out of you.
True.
You could say, and he makes his teammates better. That's why also I had Steph so high as well too, because he does the same thing. He makes people better.
Steph makes a lot of Steph makes plays that people don't expect on the floor, but it's always assumed all you see Steph do is just run off of threes and just come off the screens and just shoot jumpers, and it's like, nah, he's. Like, a lot of people forgot when Steph was at Davidson, Steph Curry was a shooter only. He didn't learn he didn't know what point guard was until his junior year, when it was like, all right, we'll make you another year. Right. When he stayed that following year, he literally molded himself into a point guard. He was ready. Of course, when he went to the draft, to the draft combine, it's like, oh, he's slow. Oh, he can't come off the first step, this, that, and the third. And they were breaking down all of his tangibles about what he wasn't doing right, his shot release, things of that nature. Now here it is, 2 championships and MVP later.
2 MVPs later.
2 and 2. I mean, you're carrying a much heavier load, and it was like literally you think back. And this is how I look at it. I'm gonna say this, and then we'll go over to the last 4 on our list. You take a player like Steph, and you look at 2 years ago. They won the first championship. Golden State got over the hump, and it was like, all right, Golden State's a good team. They're coming back. They're making their mark. When they lost the championship last year to Cleveland, everyone wrote Golden State off that quick. And it's almost like, it's a tough thing. This is probably my sidebar comment of just 2% and explaining this. stay loyal to your team. Stay loyal with which is the story. Because like people who act like they don't support LeBron, deep down know if LeBron won a championship, yo, that's my boy. I'm a LeBron fan. It's like you weren't a LeBron fan when he first played in Cleveland and was averaging a whole bunch of points and couldn't get anybody, get the ball anybody. All right, so last four and.
Last four, I'll go ahead and start it off with it. 13, I have Damian Lillard.
Okay.
14, I have Giannis Antetokounmpo. I could see him moving up by, say, like next year if we did the same thing a year from now.
Yeah.
I could see him moving up to probably the top 10.
Yeah.
Paul George at 14 and DeMarcus Cousins at 16.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, mostly same. I have a few, well, no, they're not really wild cards because, I mean, we had them just in different orders, and then I think I threw 2 wild cards in that no one would even think of looking at, but they're low for this reason. 13, I have Isaiah Thomas. 14, I have Greek Freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo. 15, Karl Anthony Towns, because it's his rise has come up now. These past couple of seasons, and number 16, believe it or not, Andre Drummond. I think Drummond doesn't get a lot of attention because of his market. He's in Detroit.
Can I ask? So, do you have Chris Paul in your top 16?
I don't have Chris Paul. The only reason I don't have Chris Paul is strictly because. I don't know if it's because I can't fault what he did with the Clippers. I mean, the Clippers, it was him. Like, it was literally everything was on him, but I just never... Chris Paul is getting... Like, even with him coming to Houston, we're not getting Chris Paul when he first came in the league, when he was throwing alley-oops like crazy. Chris Paul's father time is starting to win, and so I'm looking at it. That's why he's out of my list. Is he one of the top point guards in the NBA? Yes. It's tough to not... It's like building a list like this is heavy, especially with looking at stats and breaking down his numbers. I know numerically he's done work, but for me, it's tough because I've just looked at like Chris Paul now is like he's probably got he has to have double digits on All-Star appearances. I know
he has 9, so okay. he's been the All-Star every year since 2008.
Okay,
or it actually might be 10 now because I don't know if that's actually updated.
Yeah.
However, I just see him as a floor general still. So defensively with Isaiah Thomas.
Isaiah Thomas is, as far as him being a defender?
No, him playing on the defensive side. I don't know if he's been a defender before, but he's on the defensive side.
It's questionable. Because I really don't, I mean, everyone, I won't say, this is probably the worst reference to say it as, but I'm going to say it because it's me. You've heard the term mouse in the house. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much how a lot of people look at him as a player. That he's, if you have him checking you, then you already know it's an easy 2 points, which I think is bad. But I mean, that's he's only able to hold his ground as best with the position he's in. But then it's like I won't say he's a revised Ben Gordon because him and Ben Gordon are 2 different types of players. Because Ben Gordon was a 6-man. That was like instant points, when he was playing. Isaiah Thomas is more or less like a fourth quarter. I look at Isaiah as a benefit as far as being a fourth quarter specialist. That's kind of how that was my reason of why I had him on my list.
Okay, and with Drummond, I still see like
Drummond is the potential. Drummond is blind potential. That's the reason I have Drummond out because I can you know me. I'm gonna defend my case.
No, yeah, definitely. I just want to hear your side of this.
My Drummond story is Andre Drummond does not know and this is nothing against Stan Van Gundy. You have to know how to use a player like Drummond because I can remember back when Drummond first came in the league when he was like I'm declaring for the draft. I personally felt like he shouldn't have came out. It was too early. He was a one and done from UConn, and it was just it worked for when he got to Detroit, you can run the offense through him, but he's a double machine. That's how I look at him primarily. I think what's tough for him now is he doesn't how you see somebody get the ball and it's like they literally are thinking of 12 things that they want to do once they get the ball. He's one of those players, so he doesn't have that offensive efficiency yet, and I think that's the one thing. If it was that's why I have him at 16, where it's because I think he just made this year was his first All-Star appearance, if I'm thinking correctly.
Yeah, I believe so.
So in that regard, that's why I look at him as a come up. Like everyone, if I'm looking at if I'm thinking of the list correctly, I believe everybody has made an All-Star appearance. If I'm thinking, except Carl, I think Karl Anthony Towns has not.
No, Karl Anthony Towns has not. However, he's done some things this past seasons that no other player has done this early in his career.
Right.
So, no, Karl Anthony Towns definitely deserves to be up there as he's a great player already.
Yeah.
And also his talent as well, too. He has the ability to be so much better as well, too. One of the best big men to play the game.
Yeah.
Which is why he's up there. And he'll probably be moving up by next year as well, too. So we generally have like the same people. Just my wild card was Draymond Green. Your wild card was
Andre Drummond and Isaiah Thomas.
But they're all great players, and anybody else, as we said before, you could pull 30, 100 people, 10
and everyone will come up with a different queue of folks. And apologies to you all. I know this is like a longer queue of a story, but it was one that kind of was like, all right, it's something that I feel like is worth addressing. So I was like, it's here. Let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, finally. Sorry, I've been sitting here like I'm sitting here like with social anxiety because I'm posting stuff and thinking of like our segue. But go ahead, I'm listening.
I was gonna say we actually didn't even get the article from where this actually originated from.
Yeah, so this is all triggered from Dante Jones, who I don't know if he's currently in the league. He's kind of looking for his next home, I guess.
He was on the Cavs this past
year. He was on the Cavs previously, and he made his reference in looking at Steph Curry as not being top 10.
Yeah, he said he's not top 10. People get mad at me for me not putting him in my top 10. I have him like 11 or 12. Defense is a big thing with me. So, all right.
If we go back and look at our list and you really be brutally honest with it, there are very few players that are going to be in a top 16 discussion that are going to be defense all NBA, like all defensive all NBA.
If we're being honest here, LeBron James doesn't always commit to the defensive end. Maybe a couple plays in the fourth quarter, he'll guard the best player to try to go ahead and shut him down.
LeBron is the chase down blocker. Like, you know, I don't mind. I have my unbiased and my unfiltered thoughts about it, but he's the guarantee of, hey, I'm gonna go ahead, this block coming. Oh, I couldn't get it. Let me run back. I've always joked about that. He's literally a chase down block defensive. But I mean, as far as defense goes, he knows how to play the role. But then, like you said, he's not willing to take on, I'm going to challenge the top player on the team.
And as I said before, I don't think I've said it here yet, but like Stephen Curry, he's not the best defender. Like, let's be real here.
No.
However, he's present on the defensive end, like where he plays defense, like, and he tries to play defense. Like, whenever you see him on defense, you see him out there active, not like with his head down, looking in the stands or something like.
Yeah,
like
lost in the calls.
Just getting lost.
Like Josh Smith.
Yeah, definitely. And he's always contesting shots and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Like for example, Russell Westbrook, he had the most shots uncontested against him.
Yeah.
It's like where he wouldn't contest the person he's guarding shot. He had the most in the league last year.
Yeah.
So that's meaning that you're not really playing defense.
Right.
I'm not saying Russell Westbrook can't play defense. He just wasn't playing defense. Same goes for James Harden 2 years ago.
Oh, Harden was the Olay professional. Like this past season, you know I'm going to jump in on Harden. The year before, defense was gone. He literally was not, he was a no-show on defense every play. Every night, every game. It was not, you won't go see James Harden. This past season, I think between D'Antoni coming in and making him a point guard and kind of molding him into the role a lot differently helped out. So then it caused it to kind of trigger where it was, all right, if you're going to be point guard, that means you're going to be playing defense against some of the top point guards in the NBA, a.k.a. Chris Paul, a.k.a. Steph Curry, Damian Lillard. Like, even Damian Lillard, like a lot of people don't realize Damian Lillard's a good player. It's just tough because he's on a bad team. Like Portland,
not a bad team, but just not like they haven't gotten over the hump.
Yeah,
like, they make the playoffs and get bounced in the first round.
Yeah,
last year they made it out. This past 2 years ago, they made it to the second round and got beat by the Warriors.
Yeah, the Warriors it's the Warriors being the kryptonite. But no, I mean it's just a tough run when you're in that position in the league.
Yeah, definitely. And he's in a smaller market as well too. Same goes for Anthony Davis as well too, not getting as much shine where he's at as well.
That's why they said feed that family, get that money, and keep it moving. So we're briefly segueing away from sports. We'll return to it for Ads of the Week. We have a lightened bit of technology stories to share. I found a story, like I said, I didn't share it with you, but I mentioned it or addressed it earlier. One place that I used to keep podcasts, there's no article. This is just kind of be improv. I think I have an article for it, and I'll state it. Sorry, we're not doing Google right now. Sorry. One of the sources that a lot of people record or upload podcasts to is SoundCloud. Most people use SoundCloud for listening to a lot of underground artists. It's very useful. Well, there was a rumor and there was a story about SoundCloud shutting down. The CEO finally came out and mentioning that Alex Lejeune, he's the co-founder and CEO, stated that SoundCloud is here to stay. They were just the mention, and the reason why it was made as a big deal was because they had cut 40% of the staff. So I just want to share that story as kind of a lead into other folks. I mentioned Spreaker as a good source for podcasting, but if you have an issue with spacing and you don't want to spend a lot of money on Spreaker, SoundCloud will kind of give you a limit on how long your recordings can be. But once you record too many and don't have enough space, you either end up buying it or you end up learning, like I did, to go to Spreaker. But that's just me being biased and me being me. So I told Dimitri this, and y'all know like I tell you all the time, I'm straight up. I said, he was like, so are we doing is there any technology talk? And I was like, no, I don't think there's any technology, because there really wasn't anything going on that I thought, until I went back and I was like, wait, I really need to remember I watched Twitch. And a couple of big name streamers who are Nintendo owners, but also have others, there are other folks who have it on other platforms. A new game came out that a lot of people were waiting for. Some folks would define it as Sonic 4. Reality, the title of it is called Sonic Mania, which did come out on all consoles. And they did give a little bit of a review about it to kind of give an overall stating or defense about it. It's basically taking a lot of the levels that were on the original Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Knuckles, taking those formats. And I think they used a little bit of Sonic 3D. They used those looks and appearances, and they built the game for Sonic Mania. You still have the same rules applying. You can go in, you can kind of start the game as either Sonic, Knuckles, or Tails. It's on the big three, as I like to call it now, the PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. PC version is coming out later on this month. Overall, from what I've watched, like I said, what I've watched, and like they said, their reviews are saying it's been excellent. Seems like that the team behind the game did a really good job. From what I've looked at, it's what I expected. Like, it's a good game. They as far as many people may not remember this, when you collected emeralds, most versions had a different way of how you had to collect emeralds. On this one, you're basically chasing Robotnik he's in a weird vehicle, and the emerald is sitting under him. And you have to collect these little, and this is going to sound very inappropriate, you have to collect these little blue balls to go around to get closer to the emerald. And if you collect coins, the more coins you collect, your time increases. So like your time, it's like you have a countdown. And once you get to 0, you end up not getting the emerald.
And correct me if I'm wrong. In the trailer, it says you can play with a friend, and I believe it showed Knuckles with him as well too.
Yes.
Is that just meaning like you can play with Knuckles, or does that mean that it's a 2-player game?
It's 2-player. So basically now, all right. So tech time, story time again. When you play video games as a kid, like playing Sonic, usually most people only had one controller. Sometimes you step it up and say, "Oh, I got a second controller. Let's play Knuckles and Tails." So what would happen is one person would be one person would be Sonic, and the other person would be Tails, and they would be working together to like collect or whatever. But the only problem was if Sonic was super far ahead and Tails got left behind, and it was like, oh, you'll see Tails randomly come flying in because it was just part of it. It was the way Tails got treated very bad on the game. That's the best way I could describe it. But yeah, as far as with the format and how it's played, you do have the option of 2 players.
Okay.
I personally have not seen it in the 2-player format as of yet, but I've watched most people just kind of go through. A lot of people are doing, like with any game, how we talk about it with speed run. So I've caught a few people trying to speed run it, and it's decent. The thing that I guess I've played Sonic so many times I never really paid any attention. The benefit of getting all the emeralds in Sonic, especially with this one, is if you collect all the emeralds, it gives you an advantage where if you get over 50 rings, you turn into Super Sonic, which is it's like a Sonic with the gold, long, like whole different look. And you pretty much can kind of go through the board. You coast through the board at a faster pace. As you're collecting coins, your coins are counting down as to how long you get to be Super Sonic. It helps you if you're playing against bosses or certain levels. And then for that factor, it benefits towards the end of it.
Okay.
So yeah, that was that story. The official release date for the next story is next Friday, but it came out early for a couple of people this week who do have what's called EA Early Access. I had it one time. EA, so and Dimitri may or may not know this, so I'm sharing this with him as well. EA has what's called EA Access, where you pretty much pay so much a year, I think, and it gives you the rights to certain games. Like, let's say FIFA 18 comes out on September the 3rd. And before a couple of days before that, they may say, hey, we're going to give early access to those who have EA Access. So with EA Access, you get to play the game early for like 10 hours a day, which isn't bad. A lot of people have been doing this with Madden 18. So a lot of people have kind of got to see the new form of Madden 18, with what a lot of people call it the GOAT on the cover. The story we have breaking it down is they talking about the story mode to Madden this year has a more interactive feel to it. So a lot of people are enjoying that form of it. And it kind of gives you like a whole rundown of like the long shot. Of course, Madden Ultimate Team, which a lot of people is the primary reason most people get Madden anyway. You'll see a lot of tournaments kind of being played for that Play Now Live. It kind of puts you as close to the scheduling and rosters and updates.
And there's Frostbite, which helps with the looks of the game.
So I don't know, have you or have not heard of Frostbite before?
I have not heard of Frostbite before. So
it's an engine that EA Sports initially used with FIFA, and when FIFA used it, it was great because they used it on the mechanics. Like let's say you're playing a game in soccer, and you kick the ball in a certain wind. If the wind is going a certain way, it affects the ball. If you kick the ball, like if you have a weak, it's like so. I'm breaking this down for y'all too as listeners. I'm sorry, because I know y'all probably like, what? Are you talking just him? Like I said, I forget sometimes I forget the mic is here. Frostbite basically says, okay, let's say this player is a weak right foot kicker, and they're trying to attempt to kick a goal. If they kick it and they don't have that strength in their foot, it can affect the ball, how it spins. And football is beneficial because when you throw a ball or you throw a pass, if a quarterback doesn't have a good throwing arm or a good, long arm, it can be exposed while playing, or it can factor into if a player's getting hit, how they fall back and how the ball could go, things of that nature. So it's like all of those engines and mechanics. Madden used a different engine, which worked okay, but the Frostbite engine they found to be a better approach for the game. And then they have different game styles. They have target passing, and that's mainly the options they have for Madden this year.
And target passing is probably the biggest one because you're able to affect like where you actually pass the ball.
Right.
There's more, you could say, fancy finger work that goes involved with it. Mm-hmm. But if you practice with it, you can probably get better.
Yeah, get a better flow with Tom Brady or Jay Cutler once you get him as a starter.
They probably added that in with the Frostbite as well too, since you said the air can affect it. So now you can determine where you're actually going to throw it.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to bring maybe the air into the consideration.
Mm-hmm. Because I know with on FIFA, so to return back to FIFA briefly, if you let's say your goalie does like a kick towards trying to kick it downfield, when the goalie kicks it, they literally have a circle showing where the ball could possibly land, and it literally breaks it down as far as if the ball lands here and let's say it bounces, when it bounces it shows where it's projected to land next. So it gives the player a better feel for the game while you're playing. Speaking of, since I am mentioning soccer, I I did not know that I did not mention this game to Dimitri, and I've played it a few times, and I'm not really the best at it. But there's a game that a lot of people play, which is kind of on the come up in esports, known as Rocket League. So basically, Rocket League is, and I probably have talked about it on the podcast before, but just in case you have or have not been listening, Rocket League is implementing race cars, soccer into a dome. I don't know if y'all remember as a kid, it was a little toy that people had where you had it was a basketball inside of it, and you had to press these little buttons to make the ball move, and it was in a dome. Instead of it being little buttons that you pressing, you got an actual car, and you're driving, like you literally have to drive the ball towards the goal, but you have it where people can have the ball be in the air. It's, to me,
so the cars are the players.
Yeah. So to me, Rocket League is very aerial based. Like, you pretty much have a car. You can customize your car however you want it, and they give you like different tips. Like, you can go through a training on learning how to play the game. The reason that we're going into that story is because there's a new program coming to campuses known as Collegiate Rocket League, which will be helpful for possible scholarships for students. Where they already are doing live streams for Rocket League as it is, and it caught me off guard because they actually showed a couple of matches on TSN, Turner Sports Network. They already, esports has kind of been making its mark through ESPN and TBS with Counter-Strike, Street Fighter, games of that sort. But they'll now, Psyonix, who's the maker of the game Rocket League, they're working with the College Gaming Network, TESPA. They're doing a competitive college league.
It can be a students battle it out. It's a 3-on-3 tournament for a share of $50,000 in scholarships. The qualifiers is in September. Will decide the 8 teams from each regional conference, North, East, South, West. That will make it to the playoffs. From there, the top 2 teams from each conference will advance to the national championship. In December, one team will then be crowned the CRL champions.
Yep. So the websites, they do have it on there on the Psyonix and the TESPA websites. They go over the information for if you're interested in participating. You have to register by September 22nd if you're looking to be part of it for the first qualifier, and September 29th for the second. So I feel like this is going to be good because it's also another way to kind of get more exposure for the game itself and for people who like Rocket League as a whole. So we're going to do our fun spotlight and funny story, because I'll tell y'all this beforehand. When I first told Dimitri what we were doing for the topics, I put everything in and I was like, the artist spotlight was Busta Rhymes, and he was thinking like, so is it still going to be Busta Rhymes? And I was like, oh wait, we are doing Busta Rhymes this week. So this week's artist spotlight is one of my personal faves. One of my personal guys who I've been a big fan of. He was part of Leaders of the New School, or he formed Leaders of the New School back in 1990. Name is Busta Rhymes. He was born. He moved to Long Island in '83. Went to he met up with Charlie Brown, Dinko D, fellow. He was inspired by Public Enemy and Eric B. And Rakim. They all, then came together to be Leaders of the New School, signed with Electric Records, and it kind of just was an upward hill from there. They released, Leaders of the New School debuted in '91. They brought out Future Without a Past, and then they brought out one other album called Time. Then Busta Rhymes went to he went out on his own for a brief bit. He was appearing with a Tribe Called Quest. He was not part of Tribe Called Quest because a lot of people do kind of get that mixed up. But he did appear on the song Scenario. And he was in the remix for Craig Mack's Flavor in Your Ear. And he was also on projects with Boyz II Men, Mary J, and TLC. So then his first album was known as The Coming. Fun fact on that is a cassette tape, showing my age. He had the hit single Woo Ha, Got You All in Check. Then he did a second album drop, When Disaster Strikes, that came out, debuted number 3 in September of '97. Then he had the album ELE, or as it's called, Extinction Level Event. and then he released Anarchy. It was coincidence because I was listening to a lot of these albums in, like the past few days. I was like, I forgot how much I was a big Busta Rhymes fan because I could sing a lot of these songs kind of start to finish, and it was kind of a problem. Then in 2002 he dropped It Ain't Safe No More, followed by The Big Bang, and then in 2009 he did he put a brief hold on his musical scene. Then he worked on Back on My Bullshit, and then he went to doing more appearances with Chris Brown, Lil Wayne, Tiesto, Diplo, Twista, Fat Joe, and Kanye West. He had then signed with Cash Money in 2011. Wasn't that long, and then he would part ways with the label, and then he made his ninth effort, Year of the Dragon, which was a digital download. That album featured many artists, and in late 2000, end of last year, he released Return of the Dragon. The Abstract Went on Vacation, and that featured many artists as well.
Just a couple other things to add. Chuck D, Public Enemy, was the one who gave him the nickname Busta Rhymes after the NFL wide receiver George Buster Rhymes.
Okay.
He's widely known for his style and fashion sense depicted in several highly innovative music videos. Mm-hmm. He also has 11 Grammy Award nominations.
Yep. And
some of his hit singles include "Get You All in Check," "Put Your Hands Where My Eyes Could See," "Dangerous," "Turn It Up," "Give Me Some More," "What's It Gonna Be," I know what you want, and "Touch It."
Yep. He did Touch It. It was coincidence because Touch It was like a huge track with it brought out a lot of artists that we didn't know about, and then I Know What You Want was a heavy song because it had Mariah Carey on it, because a lot of people, we knew about Mariah, but we didn't know about Mariah that much. So yeah, that's kind of the main basis with Busta. He had a few legal issues, some personal things that went on with him, but regardless, he was able to kind of just bounce back and he continued doing music. I will admit, like his last albums, like Year of the Dragon, he made a few appearances in movies as well. He was on Boondocks and a couple of shows, things of that nature. So we're now going to get to. So before we do Ass of the Week, I wanted to add this as a segment because I still have my surprise after the Ass of the Week that I'm gonna share. But I'm doing Pass of the Week. I'm not gonna pull up the story. I'm not gonna really give major detail to it because it's already. I try to not avoid politics, but of course you can't. It's reality. Just taking time to just take honor to those who have either been hurt, injured, or harmed with everything that went on in Charlottesville. Also acknowledge what has occurred in Barcelona. There was a huge bomb. It was a van crashing that affected a lot of people. I believe the person who they thought was the alleged victim, he ended up being shot, if I'm not mistaken. It was because like stories were hitting my like news feed, and I'm just like, all of this is going on like right now. Like, why right now? But I'm sharing all of this to kind of share like this is a heavy time. Like, people need to, like, I know everyone's kind of on there. I'm doing for me, and I only care about myself. But if you're able to unite with others and just like keep a level head, it helps out a lot. I know personally, I've had my unlevel moments, and I've had to kind of realign myself. Doing peaceful things, meditation, sanity, something to kind of keep you from losing it goes a long way. That's kind of my suggestion or recommendation to everyone who's listening. And I just want to share that as we continue on to our Ask the Week. So, Cristiano Ronaldo was not even starting in the first leg of this match with Barcelona. It was the Spanish Super Cup match with Barcelona. They played last Sunday. He came in as a substitute, scored a goal, like you meant, and as you mentioned earlier before we talked about it, he scored the go-ahead goal in the 80th minute. He received a yellow card for taking off his shirt. We thought that would have been the end of it. Well, he was sent off to he then received a second. He received a second yellow card and was sent off for diving, not too long afterward. So then, out of nowhere, he decides to shove the referee in the back. And it's interesting because I didn't realize, I don't know if somebody mentioned this to me or not, but it was like, I guess when they do games, they have to keep a log during the match. And it was addressed like, the player, like Cristiano Ronaldo pushed me in the back, and they like have to present it. And so they gave him they had that occur. So then he ended up being suspended for the game on Wednesday, and then they also gave him additional 4 games for the shove.
Yes, and he also got a fine as well too. A fine of a hefty $4,483, which equates to $1.69 for the average earning of an average person in America. $1.69. So we'll see if he can
hold out for that time period.
Yes, he's also trying. He's actually going to. It says he has like 10 days to appeal. I don't know if he is going to appeal.
So update to that, because I did this not on this article, and I do apologize for that. He did appeal and he ended up losing, so he still has to serve 5 games.
Yeah, I don't know how he's going to be able to appeal that. It's obviously on camera right there.
Yeah, I think it's tough because it was a circumstance, and it was like it's momentum, but it still doesn't justify that it happened. So it is what it is.
You can't put your hands on an official.
And of course, when this happened, like I said, the internet is undefeated. So they showed a lot of other videos of players who had shoved referees and what may have been the outcome of the result of those circumstances, but it was a little different. So yeah, that's mainly an overview of this week's topics. So this is where I normally say, all right, we done, we finished, we will close out the show. But I told Dimitri before that I was going to be a man of my word. And I know I don't say a lot of things, and I said thank you, every week. But I don't know if this might be a lot, maybe small. I was kind of indifferent on what I was going to do because of the stuff I had ordered didn't come in, so I got upset. So luckily, when I said I was going to be a little late, it was a reason, and I went to this place and I found some stuff. So I'm gonna let you open this while we're on. You may see some of what's already in there. So
sorry for the ruffling.
Yeah, it is what it is. So
this is.
He has an actual Atlanta Falcons wastebasket that's pretty sizable. You can sit that in the room. I was close to getting a rug. I mean, like a front mat, and I was like, never mind. I can already see how fun that would be. And I got the coaster. Well, I'm sorry, not a coaster. That's the if you're holding like for water, mug, stuff like that. I know it's early. We ain't got the basketball yet, but got your Kentucky sticker. And got your keychain, so if you use it now, whenever, up to you. And I was indifferent about buying shirts, so I just went ahead and did a towel.
It's a Atlanta Falcons towel as well too.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. No, thank you, man. I mean, like I said, you've been there. You helped me through stuff and helped me get through this. And most times, I'm always usually like, yeah, I'm just doing the show, and it's like we get prepared, and it's I know it's a process because it's like literally. Like I tell you all the time, like as soon as I hit stop, it's like I'm starting already for next week's show, and I'm like, all right, well I got everything, and you come together and like have been there in the clutch and like help me, doing the shows here. So I truly want to say thank you, and that was like my best way of doing it. So
definitely, no, thank you. I appreciate being here with you, on the Saturdays.
Yeah, so we gonna keep, like I said, we gonna keep it pushing. We possibly might do the brackets of our teams because I know he has his list, and I have an idea of what I may do with that. I may use it as a straw poll because I use a program that can kind of get some people's opinions about, hey, how do you feel about these teams or these players? Who would you root for? So we'll look at that. Next week we will be doing the rating of quarterbacks. I'm not doing 16 as I was told, so I'm going to follow the rules. We'll probably do it as 12. I may have fun and do double elimination. I'll see. May do it in a tournament format. I'm thinking about it. But we have capped yet another show, yet another week. More stuff to come. A lot of things in store this week on my personal with the podcast every day in August has been rolling. I've been slacking a little bit. Some fun things are coming up. That's the best way I can tell y'all. So thanks as always, and Any closing remarks before we?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on what you had touched on a moment ago before we went to the Ass of the Week about what happened, like in say Charlottesville.
Yeah,
we don't get very political on here, and I try not to as well too. Just my condolences to everybody that happened like out there in Charlottesville or Barcelona as well too.
Yeah.
In regards to like say speaking out, you always want to speak out in what you believe in. If you don't believe in something, then you don't have to speak out. But whenever you do believe in something, you definitely do want to speak out about it, against it.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know.
Yeah.
Failure to justice somewhere is failure to justice everywhere.
Yes.
Or something along those lines. So
I'm with that. Good words. To add to that, as I know I was like, I'm closing, then I got this strong remark. Someone shared something on one of my friends on Facebook posted something that was very valid and very direct. And it's kind of going to be my message to leave to you all. If you are choosing to boycott, don't be upset with those who don't choose to boycott. And if you don't choose to boycott, don't be upset with those who choose to boycott, meaning be respectful of what another person chooses to do, but don't take that person's option personal against your reason for doing or not doing what you're doing. If you're standing and you're saying you're not going to watch sports, that's fine. Like I've said, I say it all the time each week, and I'll keep saying it. I can't remove football from my podcast. If I do, or if we remove it from the podcast, we'll literally be sitting here like, well, let's talk about baseball. Let's see what's who. I talked about this the other day on my podcast. I truly do not like, and I'm not gonna say I don't like. It's tough to do baseball when your biggest stories are no hitters and cycles. Don't really think that would give me a lot of ratings. So. Football is kind of a meat and potatoes story. Yes. It's as of right now. This is kind of just a sidebar. The Ezekiel, like I mentioned it earlier, the appeal is coming up on the 29th, I believe. So they're gonna the hearing for it is the 29th, but there's a possibility he may play week 1. As long as the appeal is in process, he will be able to play in preseason games. So
updates to come.
Updates to come. Carolina's playing tonight. Hopefully we can wax Tennessee's ass, because that's just how I feel. And we will roll into next week with full vengeance. And until next time, y'all take it easy.
Take it easy.
Another episode complete. Another show shared. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate you checking out any current shows or previous episodes. If you'd like to follow me on social media, you can look me up on the Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter under Past Podcast. If you'd like to go to the website, it is available at pastpodcast.com, where you can listen to this episode as well as previous episodes. Until next time, y'all take it easy.